Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Today, we're taking a standard textbook chapter on resource management and basically transforming it into your ultimate practical toolkit for getting things done. We're going to take these academic concepts and translate them into a real-world blueprint for achieving your goals faster and, honestly, just way more efficiently. Whether you're trying to ace a massive upcoming exam or plan a huge event, the principles we're covering today, they're going to absolutely change the way you approach your daily tasks. So, let's start by challenging your definition of a resource. Usually, when we hear that word, our minds immediately jump to things like money, property, or, maybe natural resources like land and water. But it's actually much more than that. A resource is literally everything you use to accomplish a goal. It's this entire ecosystem of tools, both visible and completely invisible, that you already possess. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, what is a resource? Then 2, categorizing your toolkit. 3, traits of every resource. 4, the 5 management steps. And finally, 5, putting it into practice. All right, jumping into section 1, what is a resource? Your personal toolkit. Keep in mind here, if an asset, like say an old bicycle just gathering dust in your garage, isn't actively being used, it isn't currently a resource. The textbook definition of a resource is basically anything we make use of while carrying out an activity to help us accomplish our goals. Take a second right now to just mentally inventory the tools you use every single day. The pen on your desk, your internet connection, your own physical energy. These are all resources actively helping you check boxes off your to-do list. They're all part of your toolkit. Moving on to section 2, categorizing your toolkit, sorting your assets. Notice how we can split our assets right down the middle here. We're contrasting internal human resources with external non-human resources. Human resources are the things inherently tied to you, right? Your knowledge, your motivation, your skills, your energy, and your time. And what makes human resources so exciting is that they can be continuously developed. You can train to get a new skill or study to gain knowledge. Now, on the flip side, non-human resources are the material items, your money, your physical space, your equipment. Both types are completely essential, but they require very different strategies to acquire and manage. And, speaking of human resources, we absolutely have to talk about the number 24. Time is arguably your absolute most valuable human resource. Why? Because it's the ultimate equalizer. Everyone, regardless of their background, gets exactly 24 hours in a day to balance work, non-work, and rest. And as the source material wisely reminds us, time once lost cannot be regained. How you choose to allocate those 24 hours is kind of the secret sauce. It often determines how effectively you can utilize every other resource you possess. We also need to quickly contrast our resources by ownership. On one side, we have individual resources, so your personal skills, your knowledge, your clothes. But on the other side, we rely really heavily on shared resources. These are natural resources like the air we breathe and the water we drink, as well as community resources like public roads, parks, and hospitals. Achieving your goals almost always requires a blend of both, and we all have a collective responsibility to maintain and use those shared resources judiciously. Okay, section 3, traits of every resource, the rules of the game. Every single resource out there shares 4 key characteristics. First up is utility, which just means its usefulness. Second is accessibility. How easily can you actually get your hands on it? Third is interchangeability. I love the text's brilliant example here. If you miss your school bus, you can easily substitute it with a car, a tractor, or a scooter to perform the exact same function. Almost all resources have substitutes. And finally, manageability. Because resources are finite, they must be managed to get the maximum output with the absolute minimum input. And this brilliantly illustrates that first trait we just mentioned, utility. The text uses a really surprising example, cow dung. Now, you might look at that and just think it's waste, but its usefulness depends entirely on your specific goal and situation. If your goal is to heat a home, it actually has incredible utility as fuel. If your goal is to grow crops, it has incredible utility as manure. The big takeaway here is that the value of a resource is completely tied to the specific goal you're trying to achieve. Which brings us to section 4, the 5 management steps, the core framework. I really want you to slow down and take some mental notes here because these are the 5 foolproof steps for tackling absolutely anything in your life. Whether you're doing intense exam prep, building a business, or hosting a massive event, you are always going to move through planning, organizing, implementing, controlling, and evaluating. Let's break these down a bit. Zooming in on that first step, planning. Notice the clear chronological progression. First, you assess your present situation. Literally, where are you right now? Next, you set your desired goal. Where do you want to be? So the absolutely crucial part is step 3, identifying the gap. The gap is the actual physical distance between your current reality and your goal. Once you clearly see that gap, step 4 is creating the specific plan of action to bridge it. And that naturally builds into the controlling step. You've planned, you've organized, and you've started implementing. Controlling acts as your real-time feedback loop. It's ensuring your activities are actually producing the results you want. For example, if your plan is to study for an hour, but you realize you're just staring at the TV, well, the controlling step is the self-correction. It's recognizing the error, turning off the TV, minimizing the distraction, and getting back on track so your plan actually succeeds. We've all been there, right? All right, final section. Section 5, putting it into practice, real-world application. This matrix for planning a farewell party perfectly demonstrates this whole flow in action. First, you identify your human and non-human resources. Then, in planning, you decide on the venue and the menu. In organizing, you divide up the responsibilities among everyone. Implementing is the actual, physical decorating and food prep. Controlling, that's walking around during the prep and checking if the decorations actually look like the plan you made. And finally, evaluation is assessing if the venue actually looked good at the end of the night. See, it takes a highly complex event and makes it incredibly manageable. I want to pause on that final step for a second, evaluation. Remember, evaluation isn't just about looking back at an event to say, oh, that went well, or checking your test scores to see if you passed. No, it's an active process of identifying what your actual strengths were, so you can leverage them to overcome your limitations for your next project. It is literally how you continuously level up your human resources. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought that you can instantly apply to your own life starting today. What goal are you planning next? And how will you manage your specific human and non-human resources to actually achieve it? Remember the 5 steps, identify your gap, and get to work. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And hey, happy planning!